Namaskar. So I'd like to say that this is a very exciting session, and I'm personally very excited to talk about technology. And since morning, and we have heard practitioners who are on ground tackling grassroots level challenges on ecology, conservation, restoration, and then we saw some enablers around those. That how can we help these practitioners who are on the ground? How can we make their lives easier? And we are now going to talk about a very important enabler, this technology. And I'm personally also very excited that we have an amazing panel. And these are not just experts here, these are storytellers who have lived through some amazing experiences. And you can spend days and weeks with each of them learning about their stories. So, first of all, welcome to the panel. And what we want to do today is in very, very simple terms, explain the why, what and how of the technological ecosystem that can come to support the ecology. When I say why, is it why you should care about technology and why you should be hearing us on technology? What kind of technologies are we talking about? It's a very broad spectrum. What technologies? And then how you, as an individual practitioner or a youth, can think about implementing these technology in your work. And we want to start a conversation today with two simple objectives. One is to excite you to think about how technology can empower your work. And with this panel, start a conversation, a very simple term conversation that you can follow with us after the panel discussion, after these 45 minutes. And second thing is that we have amazing youth here. And these youth will not only be the consumers of technology, they will also be the builders of technology. So we want to excite them as well to think on technology and be the future generation that will build that. So now just to set the context, in the startup world, we always have a fight which goes on between atoms and bits. Bits are these startups which are developing software technology, digital technologies. These are the fancy startups. These are the social medias, Facebooks of the world. And then on the other hand, you have the hardware startups, the atoms of the world who are moving the atoms. These are very hard to build. And these are sort of like Teslas of the world. And there is always a fight between these two. But when we look at climate change or environment, there is always a saying which goes on that atoms have to move, not the bits. So today we'll explore how these both can work together and we'll find a synergy. So I'll call Anuj here to get us started with a broad understanding of how we can merge these atoms and bits. So we can put the presentation.
Thanks a lot. So a quick thing about us, so we work at the intersection of technology, which is academia, it's like artificial intelligence, machine learning and others. On the other side, we are also having a deep insight into the impact investing ecosystem. And third, along with Balipala Foundation, we are now trying to merge the ground truthing data and lots of intelligence which has been built over multiple decades and using technology as an enabler to co-create some kind of larger ecosystem play as well. But before getting into too much details about that side, maybe quickly talking about measuring natural capital from space. One of the very basic things that we can talk about is
You just have to say next slide.
Okay, next slide, yeah. So without wasting too much of time, so we primarily measure, I will say, natural assets from space. And in that whole thing, we use satellites. And our major thing that we are trying to do in this whole thing is finding a way to train algorithms through satellites data, which are, one is freely available, and also something which is open source. And the larger thing that we are building in this whole thing is doing a very clear intervention. So this is the ecosystem that we are bringing in. So Arthanatic is on one side, which is a pure play tech side. Vertify, which is our other brand, which we are kind of co-creating for a global ecosystem. Then Solify is a project which we are trying to do with GIZ, where soil is a very, very major thing, and Alcisa, which is an enabler in terms of the ecosystem of impact investing. And what we are now trying to do is, yeah, so lots of great discussions already which we have gotten, like grasslands, forests and other things. So we talk about like forests can absorb 20% of the carbon required to reach climate goals. But at the same time, many times what we are confusing is like we are talking about creating forests. We are talking about different ways of solutions happening in this ecosystem. At the same time, many times one thing which is kind of getting blurry is how this whole ecosystem related measurement can go to the next level as well. And when we are talking about restoration is a very complex thing. And at the same time, I remember like Ranjit speaking very amazingly strong that Bhutan economy is more than $1 trillion if we measure natural assets. But how to establish that whole thing in a more holistic and democratized way? And that's where technology comes in its own possible manner. Yeah. So forest restoration is an investable ecosystem. So that's, if I have to kind of establish that, I need to find a way to measure the very clearly a kind of conundrum or intersection of how this is linked to a cleaner environment, water availability, clean air, like if you are talking about a place like Delhi and Bombay and other places, and at the same time, how we can kind of conserve the local communities and cultures as well. Yeah. And that's where the natural capital can be measured through geospatial data. And I'll kind of walk through a little bit of it, not too much because I'm aware of the audience that they are not in the scientific world. But at least I'll walk through some examples to kind of give a sneak peek into it as well. Okay, next slide. Yeah, communities needs to be engaged in the reporting of nature as well. So that's also one of the things and reason that we are in Advanced Talks Balapara Foundation for the collaborations as well. Yeah. Yeah, so what we are trying to do is, like this is one of the examples we can talk about, like we are talking about monitoring forest fires and carbon changes and detecting logging incidences and calculation of its carbon releases, just one form of it. And in this, what we are trying to do is, if we use geospatial data, one of the most powerful thing is you can measure large tract of land with much lesser capital. That means, and you can also measure it at a regular interval. Like one of the very simple thing is, if you use Sentinel data, you can kind of walk through the forest area which we have mapped, let's say the whole Assam, every 7 days. So you're talking about consistency of data and also the transparency which comes together with that. Yeah. And what we are doing is, we are using public satellite data, and our main important thrust that we are talking about is open sourcing the algorithm. And why? Because so far, even though like we have been having this whole ecosystem related thing in our analytics Vertify for the last 6 years, what we believe very importantly is technology can only go to the next level if you have more partnerships and collaborative thing coming in. And in that, you cannot be isolating yourself what you have developed without getting other stakeholders coming into it. And that's why we very consciously felt like we will open source whatever the learnings we have. So one is a soil carbon sequestration related thing we are talking about. Second is the nature-based monitoring thing. Both the things, whatever we are developing in our geospatial thing, we will be putting in the like GitHub and open source so that other practitioners or other people can find a way to collaborate together. Yeah. And from data to analysis to insights, if we build it. So we are talking about different ecosystems building into it, and lots of optical thing, like you have some kind of SAR technologies and various other things to kind of amplify a ecosystem related thing where we are measuring even the tree heights, whether the vegetation is having some kind of a, I would say, density which is older to newer, with the same thing, whether it is also having some kind of fragileness or not. Like if I give a very simple example, in Sikkim recently we had a very big deluge, like cloud bursting. Now the glaciers were melting, and when the glaciers were melting, it was very, very easy for a satellite to measure that that glacier was building into a lake. and that lake was encroaching upon some kind of a boundaries of different small dams and also the boundaries of mountains as well. And it was much easy for satellite imaging to predict that there is a chance of having some kind of a calamity which may come in. So it's a preventive thing which could be done. But at the same time, we also need ground data and ground intelligence from the, like I will say, credible organizations as well. And that's where entities like Balipara Foundation, many others comes handy, that we can find a collaborative thing to do these types of preventive measurements in a much more advanced way. And just imagine how much lives have lost, how much natural resources have been wiped out, and many other inconveniences that we are talking. And this is not one. We have more than 75 lake formations already in Sikkim right now. And this is one which we are talking about. So what about the next 75? Do we wait for another natural calamity to learn the lessons, or we kind of find a way to preventively kind of stop that as well? So that's something which we will also talk about as a policy initiative, some kind of bridging the gap we will be needing. So technology can give reports or give insights, but if it is not implemented through a proper channel, it will be coming into a very nicer glossy report, which is of no use to anybody else. And yeah, next. And then we are talking about engaging grassroots community leaders, and that's where a very important initiative that we are talking along with Balipara is like mapping how we can collaborate with the Northeast biodiverse ecosystem. And in that, as we are talking about, lots of amazing things which can happen is, let's say I'm a forest person, so some kind of experiment which has happened in different parts of the world, that they also use mobile data to kind of touch upon and train the algorithm of satellite data to find some kind of changes which might happen in a nearby forest as well. Let's say you have a mother tree in a forest. A mother tree is like a big tree which kind of houses lots of ecosystem around it. And a local person might know about the mother tree health as well. And if they have some kind of mobile data exchanging, some pictures and others, we can train the algorithms from the satellite to make it more intelligent to predict whether that particular forest will have some kind of vulnerability or not as well. And maybe with that, like I'll kind of take a pause.
Perfect. So, thank you Anuj for this amazing overview of from technology to open sourcing to bridging the communities. And let me just pick the community angle a bit, because that's something which is very, very important, and let's go bottoms up from that. So, let me ask this to Sujata ma'am here. So, when we talk about community, and you have worked extensively with the last mile, or call them the grassroots, and you have gone to the places where even the governments haven't been able to reach. So how do you think we can use technology to reach these communities and build truly for the grassroots?
Yes, hello. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to the panel, though it's last minute. I hope I'm able to do justice. Thank you. Okay, I can give a couple of examples of that actually. So I work with A3, Ashoka Plus for Research in Ecology and the Environment. You heard quite a lot of my colleagues speak before. We do work a lot with communities. We also are a research organization. So I'll touch on the community-based bit, and this is taking off on what Anuj said. See, ultimately tech is an enabler. We want to understand how technology can be used can empower communities to give them access to their rights, more information, take that information and get what they need. So to give you an example, the Community Forest Rights Act, we got in 2006. The act itself was good enough to, it spoke about giving communities access to manage, use, their forest reserves, but the implementation is poor. Now how then do we understand, how does a community member understand what his rights are? How can he go about getting those rights? So we built an app called the Amcho app at A3. Currently what it does is in the state of Chhattisgarh largely we use GIS mapping like Anuj talked about to map vast regions of land. And this can be used by communities to understand where their parcels of land are, what kind of rights they can enable them, get the information about these lands and go to the authorities. It even helps them to apply for their forest rights. So this is one way of reaching out to the community in itself. In this way, we've reached out to about almost 20 to 30,000 people at the community level, and I've given them access to like 50,000 hectares of land. Now, this would not have been possible without technology at all. Another example, if you take up education, what A3 is planning to do actually is environment education is very key. One of the key things that A3 is planning to do at the school level, high school level, as well as college. We're already doing it. But imagine the number of resources that are available across the country in terms of environment education. But is it context specific? Is it region specific? How do we get somebody sitting in say, in Alapi, sitting on the wetlands of Vembanad Lake? How do we get them access to education which is very relevant for their region? So our platform, the platform that we use, we're planning to build is get data, get curriculum onto onto a platform which is easily accessible, and it is segregated, sorted on the basis of geography, culture, the nature of the environment issues that we are discussing, so that it is available for all, and it brings together, it crowdsources information. We get in curriculum and pedagogy across from various teachers, trainers, as well as gives access to anybody sitting on right there. It's a simple access of putting together on a technology platform. So yeah, these are a couple of examples that I can give you of working with technology, and I could give you a lot more from my previous organization as well. But technology, as Anil said, is only as good as it is used. Otherwise, it's just a platform, it will just stay there and will have no use whatsoever. Thanks.
You know, I find this aspect really interesting when we talk about technology as an enabler. But one more thing that often comes with it as how do we move communities from just being beneficiaries to actually being the people who are building these technological solutions. And you mentioned some very important aspects that you're developing very customized curriculums for them. So I just want to take a moment and maybe talk to Dr. Barua that how leading innovation and entrepreneurship today can help these communities upscale and can look to develop skills in the emerging technologies.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I already talked about the education part of it. So, you know, education is a big thing, and how to reach out, as has been mentioned by Sujata, that it has to be region specific, language specific. But technology is available today, and I just want to focus a little bit on that, the technology which she has talked about, and Anuj also. So today, what has happened is that we have a network, right? We have a network which is the mobile system, which connects everybody, practically everybody. And it is now reached a stage where it reaches the remotest locations, even in the northeast. So this is used to communicate with each other, but it can also be used to disseminate information, to teach, to educate, to provide solutions, to give market information. You know all of that. So it's all possible today, and we should, this technology that is on top of this basic hardware, the atom, so to speak, the bits have to be there, and the bits basically are the apps, and we can have an app for education, we can have an app for, farmer inputs specific to the region, because now, we can engage people who know the place, and one person talking and delivering a talk on an app will reach thousands of people. Right? So this is one, clearly it is taking off not only in this ecology area, but it's taking off in almost all areas of business and economy. The second technology which I think which is connected with this in some sense, is the drone technology, the unmanned aerial vehicles, which is of particular interest, I think, for ecology. We have talked about satellite data. Satellite data is a wonderful thing. It has been used and is being used But then if we want micro level data, there was a talk about tying up with the grassroots, and Anush talked about talking to people who know about particulars. So we could go a slightly higher level instead of depending on the persons, we could use drones. Drones can now, there are various kinds of drones, and drone technology has taken a big leap forward. Do you know why? Because of the war. Because of the Ukraine war, drone technology has, in the last 1 year, has grown tremendously. But now we don't want war, we want peace. We want to use those drones to make use of in our endeavors. So here, there are a number of ways. So one is that you want to find out lower level information, micro level information. You can send drones. You can send drones to the field, and you can send not one drone. You can send 1,000 drones. You can send a swarm of drones who talk to each other and decide where to go. And some form of intelligence can be built into the drone algorithms, so that you have, instead of a human being, normally a drone has a human being at one end controlling the drone. But you can have a swarm of drones. The human doesn't know where to go. So we have got this huge forest in Arunachal. We don't know what's going on there. Let loose 1,000 drones there. Of course, we'll have programmed them before, we'll have taught them. Okay? And so drones can reach where no man can literally. Right? It is also very useful, it is already known, and for disaster management. When there is a disaster, the mobile network is gone, okay? There is nothing available. So the drones can take part, and they can provide an ad hoc network, as it is called, in the disaster area. And drones can land and talk to each other, and human beings can connect to those drones that have landed and set up a network. So that is another application of drones. Now, given this drone, given these interconnected mobiles, there is a scope for collecting data, lots of data. When there is a lot of data, what comes next? Machine learning, artificial intelligence. So whenever we can collect lots and lots of data, we can then apply AI algorithms or machine learning algorithms to get more stuff, get more intelligence into our algorithms. And that is what is going to happen and is happening. So for example, just one example outside this area, one of the big endeavors has been to translate language from English to Hindi to Japanese. And a lot of theory, a lot of work has gone on, lots of so-called corpus have been built. But suddenly there was a revolution in 2010 or so, because computers became so powerful that they found AI or artificial neural network technology, this algorithm, to do the translation, and with tremendous success. Now the same kind of thing is getting done in our milieu about weather forecasting. Weather forecasting is a very difficult thing, and long-term forecasting is there, but the short-term is very, very difficult. However, with data of previous, weather patterns, if they are available to us, we can feed them to this neural network, and we can get this neural network software to predict what is going to happen, given that the temperature has suddenly dipped, the pressure has gone up, and and it's raining in Bangladesh, what will happen in Shillong? Okay, so stuff like that can happen now, and it is being used. So similarly, we can use these drones and communication with maybe there's another example I want to give.
Professor, I'm sorry, we just have 3 minutes left. So
I'll stop.
Yeah,
I'll stop because
I'm very sorry, but I think the audience would love to connect back with us. So I just had one last question that maybe we all can just take a minute on. And this came in just last to last session when Professor Dhanashree had pointed out the fact that NGOs even find it difficult to make proposals to the standard of UN, and they really lack tech stacks to do that. So, in a very realistic world sense, and let me start with Anuj, please describe like a simple tech stack that today an NGO or a practitioner today can use it right now and to simplify their lives, from maybe starting from bidding for a project, bidding for a proposal, to their operations, to showcasing their data, and then maybe even building trust to get the finance.
So like if I give a very clear example, like a real one, like assume we are talking about full Northeast, and if a non-profit has to bid for it, like it's a Herculean task, you'll need thousands and thousands of people to kind of measure a certain outcome in an area which is super large, more than the multiple countries. So a satellite can give you a full, bigger vision like of the area with some kind of a detailing, which could be up till 30 meters is free. Below that it is chargeable. At the same time, we use intelligent sampling techniques, which is like statistical sampling techniques. That means you can lower down the number of samples which are taken across Northeast, which could be in just less than 100 people going on the ground. And then we extrapolate it with respect to a larger bidding that you can do it. That means you can compete with larger corporates which are talking about big data and other things. At the same time, as a non-profit, you have very rich data on the ground. Satellite data complements it. And we are talking about a global solution and global, I will say, ecosystem related approach as well. And something very important is scale. And if you are too small, then you are not even considered an RFP. So a collaborative thing with a tech stack with respect to non-profit, with respect to a policy angle and advocacy can bring a pretty good sizable thing to go to the next level. Yeah.
Perfect. So collaboration is immensely important. Ma'am?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. So a couple of things that NGOs really struggle with is articulating impact, talking about how much, even understanding what projects have come in, what monies have come in, and so on and so forth. Another thing I'll quickly talk about is reaching out to their beneficiaries when they're quite a vast thing and disseminating information awareness together. So I can talk about quickly about two kinds of techs. I mean, we haven't built it, but there's a platform called Glyphic, which uses great chatbots to talk to the communities.
Sorry, what is the name of the platform?
GLIFIC, Glyphic. Built by one of our donors, and it's an excellent platform for you to be able to reach out to community members and make it very highly customized, highly affordable, so it helps you reach out to your beneficiaries. Another platform I can think of which helps you to allocate your budgets, articulate impact better. There are quite a few platforms out there, so once you get your funds, once you get your impacts, you put them into kind of a software format, and then it helps you track your spending. I think there's one that I know is called ERP for impact. So there's quite a few in there, and you're absolutely right, non-profits struggle with using technology for this, and if you would, it would just make your life a lot easier. You can focus on operations and let technology do the work of data. So yeah, I'll stop at that.
Perfect, perfect. And I'll quickly add that generative AI, which is also the topic for today's session, is also quite big. So even if you can learn how to use GPT and prompt it well, ChatGPT, or use tools like Perplexity, you'd be able to prepare your proposals actually to the level which Professor Dhanashri was mentioning, that just prompt it well and you'd be able to come up to that level. So the access to knowledge or access to that kind of design and materials is also coming quickly down, and we are coming to a same level playing field. So just to conclude that, we saw right from the beginnings of the technology that how do we monitor the kind of impact which is happening, in even find out assets which are on the ground, how do we use GIS for that. Then looking at doing much more deeper analysis on that through drones, and then pushing in that data and using algorithms, machine learnings and AI models which are now emerging up and creating much new levels of insights can be immensely beneficial for conservation restoration. We also saw that there are some very new technologies and tools which are now in the market which can help a practitioner today or an NGO today level play their field and come up to the same level as some corporate is doing now. So there is hope, and this is an exciting field, and I hope you have got some amazing points today, and we are all here and we'll be happy to and love to chat. Can we take a question? Is it time? Perfect. So please feel free to talk to us, and always happy to chat. Thank you. And thank you to the panel, and thank you, Balikara.
Just to finish with the alternate thought, because we all are here in Northeast,
Right.
Westline 1. So one side is technology, which keeps talking about artificial intelligence going to Mars and others, but the other side, the richest person in the world, Bill Gates, keeps investing in agriculture. He's the biggest landowner, agricultural landowner of US. So just mind it, small farm holders, farming is still the goal. You have to go back in that whole thing.
Yeah. So while you're moving the bits, also move the atoms. So that's the point. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, panelists. I would request.